You know what's absolutely hilarious about being broke? Everyone assumes you're just bad with money, like somehow you chose to have more month than paycheck, as if financial stress is just a fun hobby you picked up. Well, I've got news for you. Having $10,000 hanging over your head when you're making barely enough to cover rent isn't a character flaw. It's mathematics, and mathematics can be solved. My name is Nick, and I've spent way too much time figuring out how regular people can dig themselves out of financial holes without winning the lottery or inheriting money from a rich uncle they never knew existed. If you're tired of calculator apps making you cry and you actually want a step-by-step plan that works in the real world, make sure to hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up if it ends up saving your financial sanity. Here's something that might shock you. The average American has over $6,000 in credit card debt alone. Add student loans, medical bills, and that car payment you're pretending doesn't exist, and $10,000 in total debt starts looking pretty normal. But normal doesn't mean acceptable, and it definitely doesn't mean permanent. The problem with most debt advice is that it's written by people who think a small salary means anything under six figures. They'll tell you to just cut out your daily coffee like that $7 a week is going to transform your entire financial life. Meanwhile, you're doing mental gymnastics trying to figure out if you can afford both groceries and gas this month. But here's what changes everything. And this is something most financial experts completely miss. Paying off debt isn't just about having more money. It's about understanding exactly how much debt costs you beyond the obvious monthly payments. Every month you carry that $10,000 balance. You're not just paying the minimum. You're paying interest that compounds, late fees that add up, and opportunity costs that most people never even consider. Let me break down what $10,000 in debt actually costs you. If you're paying the minimum on credit cards with an average interest rate of 20%, you're looking at roughly $200 per month just in interest charges. That's $2,400 per year going absolutely nowhere except into the pockets of credit card companies. Over 5 years, you'll pay more in interest than your original debt amount. But it gets worse. That monthly payment isn't just money leaving your account. It's money that could have been building wealth, creating an emergency fund, or investing for your future. The real cost of debt isn't just what you pay, it's what you can't build while you're trapped in the payment cycle. Now, before we dive into the actual strategy, we need to address the elephant in the room. You might be thinking, this won't work for you because your situation is different. Maybe you're a single parent working 2 jobs. Maybe you live in an expensive city where rent eats up most of your income. Maybe you have medical expenses that weren't exactly planned for. Here's the thing that separates people who eliminate debt from people who stay stuck forever. The successful ones stop making excuses and start making plans. I'm not saying your challenges aren't real. I'm saying they're not permanent roadblocks unless you decide they are. The strategy I'm about to show you has been used by thousands of people to eliminate debt faster than they thought possible, and it works regardless of your income level. The key is understanding that debt elimination isn't about earning more money, though that helps. It's about creating a systematic approach that maximizes every dollar you already have. Step 1 is something most people completely skip, and it's probably why their debt payoff attempts fail before they even start. You need to know exactly what you're dealing with. Not approximately, not roughly, exactly. Grab every credit card statement, student loan summary, medical bill, and any other debt you've been avoiding. Yes, even that store credit card you forgot about. Create a simple list with 4 columns. Write down the creditor name, total balance owed, minimum monthly payment, and interest rate for each debt. This might be the most uncomfortable 5 minutes of your entire month, but it's also the most important. You cannot defeat an enemy you refuse to acknowledge. Most people stay in debt longer than necessary because they're fighting shadows instead of actual numbers. Once you have your complete debt inventory, add up the total balances and total minimum payments. If seeing that number makes you want to hide under a blanket and pretend this video never happened, you're having a completely normal reaction. The difference between people who eliminate debt and people who don't is what they do next. Now comes the strategic decision that will determine how fast you escape this financial prison. There are two main approaches to debt elimination, and choosing the wrong one for your personality type will sabotage your entire plan. The debt avalanche method focuses on paying off your highest interest rate debts first. Mathematically, this saves you the most money over time because you're eliminating the most expensive debt fastest. If you're the type of person who gets motivated by spreadsheets and optimal efficiency, this might be your approach. But here's what the math nerds don't tell you. Personal finance is more personal than it is finance. If you're someone who needs to see progress quickly to stay motivated, the debt avalanche method might actually work against you. Paying an extra $50 toward a credit card with a $5,000 balance doesn't feel like progress, even when it's the mathematically correct choice. That's where the debt snowball method comes in. And this is what I recommend for most people, especially those on smaller salaries. Instead of focusing on interest rates, you focus on balances. List your debts from smallest to largest balance, regardless of interest rate. You'll pay the minimum on everything except the smallest debt. Every extra dollar you can scrape together goes toward eliminating that smallest balance completely. Once it's gone, you take the money you were paying on that debt and add it to the minimum payment of the next smallest debt. This creates momentum that's both mathematical and psychological. Each eliminated debt frees up more money for the next one. And more importantly, each victory proves to your brain that this plan actually works. Success breeds success, and momentum builds on itself. The reason this method works so well for people on tight budgets is simple. When you're living paycheck to paycheck, motivation matters more than optimization. Seeing that first debt disappear completely gives you the emotional fuel to tackle the next one, then the next one. But here's where most debt snowball advice falls apart. Everyone tells you to find extra money to throw at your debts, but nobody explains how to actually do that when you're already stretched thin. They'll suggest you get a side hustle like it's as simple as deciding to grow taller. The truth is, creating extra money for debt payments requires a completely different approach when you're working with a small salary. You can't just cut expenses that don't exist, and you can't just earn more money by wishing really hard. Instead, you need to think like a financial detective. Every dollar in your budget needs to be questioned, every expense needs to justify its existence, and every spending decision needs to pass the debt elimination test. The debt elimination test is brutally simple. Before you spend money on anything that isn't absolutely essential, you ask yourself one question. Will spending this money get me closer to being debt-free, or will it keep me trapped longer? Most people fail this test spectacularly because they've never actually thought about opportunity cost in real terms. That $20 dinner you're considering isn't just $20. It's $20 that could knock your smallest debt down faster. It's $20 that could save you months of interest payments. It's $20 that's choosing temporary satisfaction over permanent freedom. When you start thinking this way, spending decisions become much clearer. But let's get practical about finding money you didn't know you had. The first place to look isn't your spending, it's your recurring subscriptions and automatic payments that you've completely forgotten about. The average person has at least 3 subscriptions they're not using. Gym memberships for gyms they haven't visited since January, streaming services for shows they never watch, app subscriptions for productivity tools that somehow made them less productive. Log into your bank account and credit card statements. Go through every single automatic payment from the last 3 months. Cancel anything you haven't used in the past 30 days. Yes, even if you might use it someday, someday never comes when you're drowning in debt, and you can always resubscribe later when you're financially stable. Next, we need to talk about the grocery budget, because this is where most people leak money without realizing it. The average household wastes about 40% of the food they buy. That's not just environmentally tragic, that's mathematically devastating when you're trying to eliminate debt. Meal planning isn't just for organized people with color-coded calendars, it's financial warfare disguised as dinner preparation. Before you go grocery shopping, plan every single meal for the week. Check what you already have in your pantry, refrigerator, and freezer. You'd be amazed how many complete meals you can create from ingredients you already own. When you do shop, stick to your list like your financial freedom depends on it, because it does. Every impulse purchase is a vote for staying in debt longer. That fancy cheese that's calling your name isn't just $5. It's $5 that extends your debt timeline and costs you additional interest payments. Here's a grocery shopping hack that most people never consider. Shop the perimeter of the store first. That's where the actual food lives. Fruits, vegetables, meat, dairy. The middle aisles are where they keep the processed, expensive, nutritionally questionable items that drain your budget and probably your health too. But finding extra money is only half the equation. The other half is making more money, and this is where things get interesting for people on small salaries. You can't just work more hours at your current job because there probably aren't more hours available. You need to think strategically about generating additional income streams. The gig economy isn't perfect, but it's accessible. Food delivery, rideshare driving, pet sitting, house sitting, freelance writing, virtual assistant work, tutoring, selling items you no longer need. The key is choosing something that fits your schedule and doesn't require significant upfront investment. But here's what most side hustle advice gets completely wrong. They treat additional income like fun money. Like somehow earning an extra $300 per month means you can finally afford those shoes you've been wanting. Wrong. Every single dollar from side income should go directly toward debt elimination, not after you pay your regular expenses, not after you treat yourself for working hard. Immediately and completely, set up a separate bank account specifically for debt elimination. Every dollar from side work goes into this account, and every dollar in this account goes toward your smallest debt balance. This psychological separation prevents you from spending money that should be working toward your freedom. The automation part, crucial because willpower is a finite resource. When you're tired after working your regular job plus side hustles, the last thing you want to do is manually transfer money and make debt payments. Automate everything. Set up automatic transfers from your side hustle account to your debt payment account. Set up automatic payments to your creditors. Now, let's talk about something that makes most people uncomfortable but can dramatically accelerate your debt payoff timeline. You need to consider whether some of your current expenses are actually investments in staying poor. That car payment you're making every month, is it for reliable transportation that gets you to work, or is it for an image that's costing you financial freedom? The average car payment in America is over $500 per month. If you're paying anything close to that while trying to eliminate $10,000 in debt, you might be prioritizing the wrong things. I'm not suggesting you should walk to work or ride a bicycle in a snowstorm. I'm suggesting that reliable transportation and expensive transportation are two completely different things. A dependable used car that costs half as much per month could free up thousands of dollars per year for debt elimination. The same logic applies to housing costs. If you're spending more than 30% of your income on rent or mortgage payments, you might be living beyond your means while wondering why you can't make progress on debt. Moving somewhere less expensive isn't glamorous, but neither is being trapped in debt for years longer than necessary. These decisions aren't permanent. You're not signing up for a lifetime of driving older cars and living in smaller spaces. You're making strategic short-term sacrifices for long-term financial freedom. The person who spends 2 years living below their means to eliminate debt is in a fundamentally different position than the person who spends 10 years making minimum payments while maintaining an unsustainable lifestyle. But let's address the psychological warfare that debt creates in your brain. Every month you carry balances, you're not just paying interest, you're training your mind to accept financial mediocrity as normal. You're teaching yourself that monthly payments are just a fact of life, like gravity or taxes. This mental conditioning is why so many people stay in debt forever. Even when their income increases, they get raises and immediately increase their lifestyle to match. They pay off one credit card and celebrate by charging up another one. They never actually break the cycle because they never change the underlying beliefs that created the debt in the first place. Breaking free requires more than just mathematical strategies. It requires rewiring your relationship with money, consumption, and delayed gratification. Every time you choose not to spend money you don't have, you're building a different identity. You're becoming someone who controls money instead of letting money control them. The compound effect of these small decisions is staggering. Every dollar you don't spend on unnecessary items is a dollar that eliminates debt faster. Every month you eliminate debt faster is a month of interest payments you never have to make. Every interest payment you avoid is money that can build wealth instead of enriching credit card companies. This is where most people's debt elimination plans either accelerate dramatically or fall apart completely. The difference isn't income level or mathematical ability. The difference is understanding that temporary discomfort leads to permanent improvement, while temporary comfort leads to permanent problems. Here's something that will either motivate you or make you want to throw your phone across the room. Marissa Kazem-Potts graduated college in 2010 with $40,000 in student loan debt. While you might think that's worse than your $10,000 situation, here's what makes her story fascinating. She didn't just pay off her debt, she eliminated it completely while working jobs that barely covered her basic expenses. The difference between Marissa and the millions of people who stay trapped in debt forever wasn't her salary. It was her approach to side income. Most people treat extra money like a reward for working hard. They earn an additional $200 and immediately start planning how to spend it on something fun. Marissa did something different. She created what she called her Freedom Fund. Every dollar from side work went into this separate account with one purpose: debt elimination, not after she covered her regular expenses, not after she treated herself for the extra effort, immediately and completely. This psychological trick turned additional income into a debt destruction weapon instead of just more money to waste. But here's where her strategy gets really interesting. She didn't just find one side hustle and hope for the best. She built multiple income streams that fit around her primary job: morning receptionist work at a dance studio, selling clothes she no longer wore, executive coaching for professional women during evenings and weekends. Each stream was small, but together they created serious momentum. The key insight from her approach is this: you don't need one massive income boost. You need consistent, additional cash flow that you protect from lifestyle inflation. Most people fail at debt elimination because they treat extra money like bonus fun funds instead of debt elimination ammunition. Now let's talk about something that sounds boring but can save you thousands of dollars in years of payments: balance transfers and debt consolidation. If you're paying high interest rates on multiple credit cards, you're essentially volunteering to stay in debt longer than necessary. Here's how this works in practical terms. Let's say you have $5,000 on a credit card charging 22% interest. If you're making minimum payments, you'll be sending money to that credit card company for decades while barely touching the actual balance. But if you can transfer that balance to a card offering 0% interest for 18 months, suddenly every payment goes toward eliminating the actual debt instead of enriching the credit card company. The catch is that balance transfers usually require decent credit scores and come with transfer fees, typically 3 to 5% of the balance. But even with those fees, the interest savings can be massive. $5,000 at 0% for 18 months versus $5,000 at 22% annual interest. The difference is hundreds of dollars that stay in your pocket instead of disappearing into credit card company profits. Personal loans offer another consolidation option, especially if your credit isn't perfect. Instead of juggling multiple payments to different creditors, you combine everything into one monthly payment, usually at a lower interest rate than credit cards. The psychological benefit of having one payment instead of 5 or 6 is huge. Like, you're not constantly reminded of your debt situation every time you open your mailbox, but here's the consolidation mistake that keeps people trapped forever. Like, they combine their debts, celebrate having lower payments, and then immediately start charging up the credit cards they just paid off. Consolidation only works if you close those paid off accounts and commit to not creating new debt. This is where most people's financial discipline gets tested. Having available credit after consolidation feels like having extra money. It's not. It's a trap disguised as opportunity. The same spending habits that created $10,000 in debt will create $20,000 in debt if you don't fundamentally change your relationship with credit. Look, paying off $10,000 in debt on a small salary isn't some magical fairy tale that only works for other people. It's a systematic process that thousands of people have used to break free from the monthly payment prison that keeps most folks trapped forever. You now have the exact blueprint. List your debts, choose your elimination method, find extra money you didn't know existed, automate everything, and protect yourself from making the same mistakes twice. Your future self is counting on the decisions you make today.